She looked at me with a smirk. What the hell are you talking about, security? My name's not Jetstream. You couldn't pay me enough to be that stuck up. Before my change, my name was Brass. Brass? That mare who fucked with Doof? I stared at her. Then how'd you become this? She gestured to herself with a hoof claw. Oh, I jumped at this the first chance I got. A leg up on the food chain, wings, and command over these dumb critters. What was there not to love? True, they stuck me in stasis when the file was locked down, but I got to admit, I like the wasteland a lot more. I looked at her and then pointed a hoof. So, you were a soldier, volunteered to become this, and couldn't be happier. That's right, she said with a chuckle, snapping her tail. No angsty backstory, no regrets. You're perfectly happy being a monster? I said as I smiled. She scowled at me, her claws scraping the broken-up pavement. Absolutely. Then she growled as I burst out laughing. What's so funny? Glory and Lacuna looked at me in concern. Understandable, given that I'd been running around screaming like a maniac just a few minutes ago. I sat hard on my haunches and looked at the sky, extending my legs as if a thank you for the goddesses themselves. Finally! I finally have an enemy to fight that I don't have to feel sorry for, I said, tears running down my cheeks as I loaded the magazine full of hollow point rounds into Vigilance. Do you have any idea how many times I've had to fight a monster pony, only to guilt and whine and angst about it afterwards? But you're a complete monster, Brass, I said, as I slashed the sword in front of me. Do you eat foals? Tell me you eat foals and rape helpless little ponies. That'd be icing on the cake, too. I laughed in mad glee, doing a shuffling little dance with my taped-up legs. Woo-woo, no regrets. No, sir, no regrets, not for me. Woo-hoo! I sang as I danced around in a little strutting trot. She roared and charged, but then, just as suddenly, danced back on her claws as my sword sang in a slash before her. Back and forth the blade slashed, inches from her face as I charged at her. No angst, no moral dilemmas, no wondering if I did something wrong. Hold still, I shouted in glee as I raged Vigilance, and slipped into sats and queued up 4 shots. It was a testament to her speed that she was able to raise her clawed hooves to shield her face as the bullets blasted big holes out of her hide. You're insane, she shouted. Fury, damn it, kill her! From my blind side, a mare said in a bored tone, You're such an idiot, Brass. And I turned to see a mare on fire? No, it was an earth pony with a mane and a coloration that resembled crackling flames. And don't use that stupid code name on me. Honestly, what are you? A filly reading comics? Just shut up and kill her. And where the hell is Precious? The Manticore pony yelled as 2 of her beasts came to shield her from my gunfire. Who cares? The orange and red mare drawled. Get clear. Now that's never a good thing to hear. I brought the gun around and pointed it at her head. Get back! She didn't. Get the fuck back! I did not like how casually she strolled towards me, or the tawny manticore monster, how it was moving away. Yeah, add a few more explosives. See if that works for you, she said as she started tossing bits of junk and garbage onto her back. So, Sanguine wants it back. In fact, he wants it so bad that he started cutting power to our stasis pods for more help. So you can just come with us and give it up, or we can take it. Or you tell him no dice, I replied, as I backed away from this weird mare, trying to figure out her thing. What was she fused with? Given how the other was moving away, I gestured for Lacuna and Glory to move away too. Neither looked particularly happy about it, especially given that they each had a manticore snapping at them. Beam gun bursts and magic arrows kept the monsters back, though, as the mare kept on picking up pieces of junk. Look, Deus wouldn't have even been after it if Sanguine hadn't had his hooves in the fire. And Sanguine wouldn't have been after it if something didn't have his hooves in the fire. So just give it up, she said as she looked at me dully. You know what? Fuck it, she said. The flame mare closed her eyes and she started to glow. And she exploded. You know, I was rather sure that I had completely surpassed my quota of explosions for today. And it wasn't even noon. The junk she'd tossed on herself became deadly shrapnel that whizzed past me and slid across the ground and came to a halt against a dead ranger. Then the pile of ashes glowed and then reformed into a flame-colored mare. Ow, she muttered with a hiss of pain, looking at me, and started trotting towards me again with an annoyed look. Wow, most ponies don't need to see this a second time, she said as she started to glow once more. Rampage darted in front of me as the mare flashed and exploded again. The flames washed over her armor and cooked her striped hide as she shielded me from the blast. Toasty, Rampage yelled, the blackened flesh already beginning to heal. I got this one, Blackjack. Rampage, are you back with us? I asked and saw her pink eyes hesitate. Is Scotch okay? She asked, biting her lip. I don't know, I admitted, looking towards the firehouse. What was taking them so long? I could see the tag in the blue bars. Let me know when you do, she said as she turned towards the regenerating red and orange mare. Okay, Sparkly, let's see it again. And she charged the startled-looking mare, who glowed as Rampage bulldozed her off to the north. Then the mare exploded again, and I heard Rampage laugh in glee. Okay, this is getting surreal, I muttered, then grinned at the manticore pony as I struggled to my hooves, tottered, and fell flat on my face. Well, I wouldn't let that stop me. Oh, brass, I sang as I lifted the glowing sword. I felt drunk, like I'd shot down a whole bottle of wild Pegasus. My hide was numb and my mouth kept slipping up on the words. Blackjack, shouldn't we be getting the heck out of here? Glory asked, her red beams peppering the annoyed-looking manticore. Clearly, her Gatling beam didn't pack the shot-per-shot punch of her beam rifle. Still, she had a point. If I could only think. So many blasts and crashes and impacts left my brain feeling like it had so much mashed jelly in it. Right, I said as I picked myself to my hooves. Then the tag was moving again. Towards us? Yes, towards us. But the smoke and fire and monsters and brain damage were all adding up onto me, and I managed 4 steps before anything went sideways, and I collapsed onto my face again. I rolled onto my back, looking at the smoke pouring up into the sky, and I stretched my hooves towards it for a moment. If I could just push the clouds away and see the blue beyond. Sweet Celestia, I was messed up. How many times had I been blown up today? A grenade drove off Glory's manticore and announced that P-21 had arrived with Scotch in tow. He looked more frazzled than usual as Persuasion thumped and precisely aimed grenade blew the monster's back. Scotch Tape looked sullen, though. I can't believe you wouldn't let me bring her with us. Not now, Scotch, he replied in the middle of loading another grenade. Stop talking at me like you're my mom. She saved me from the ranger ponies, she insisted, as she pointed back to the fire station. Who saved who? My head hurt. As they argued, Lacuna exhausted the ammunition for her Porloon grenade machine gun and tossed the bulky weapon away. All she had was her magic, and not even that seemed inexhaustible. Then 2 rangers slammed into the beast she'd faced, distracting them. One of them had to be Paladin Stronghoof. I thought I saw him looking towards me as he smashed the beast like a stuffed animal. The other was Turnup, firing a missile at the manticore at almost point-blank range. Rampage fought the exploding pony, Other rangers shot at her. Fillies and burners fired at them. I could see the dealers standing beside me, and part of me noticed that my crazy had gotten good enough to make it a bit harder to see him through the smoke. Do you understand now, Blackjack? Do you understand what you're trying to stop? Lacuna took the opportunity to return to me, lowering her horn and applying a tickle of healing magic to my head. My pipbuck labeled it as crippled. That explained a lot. Yeah, but I got to do something to stop it. All we needed now was the Enclave to sweep in, and I'd wave the white flag. It couldn't get any worse than this. And then the roar sounded. It was close, deep, grinding, and loud enough that every pony around stopped fighting and looked about. And then it sounded, sending a shiver along my mane. We need to go, I said as I struggled to my hooves. That seemed to be a growing consensus as every pony started to back away from the burning fire station. For a few seconds there were only the sounds of crackling flames and the more distant fighters. Then a rumbling crash grew louder and louder as the roar became a growing scream from the northeast. The firehouse exploded. No, not from a bomb or the like. Instead, the flaming structure was pushed completely over by a massive monster of metal, half crawling over and half bursting through the structure. I'd seen the machine like this before, half rusted and buried in a landslide. But this one wasn't rusted. It was operational, mobile, and much, much bigger. Just what this fight needed. A tank. The huge vehicle was covered in black and white stripes and coated with flaming debris. Every pony with a gun pointed it at the steel beast and opened fire as they fled in any direction they could that was away. Its heavy armored plates were barely scratched by the heavy weapons of the rangers. Steel Rain might have been able to do something, but he was nowhere to be seen. Smart pony. 2 huge barrels swept across the battlefield as the turret turned, shaking off heaps of rubble like a dog. Smaller gun barrels recessed from the corners, tracking back and forth for a moment. Then belched out streams of gunfire that tore through everything equally, pony and power armor alike. The exploding pony was hit and exploded, but didn't reform immediately. Dead? Waiting? Brass was hitting the clouds. I hoped she ate a lightning rod. Rampage blinked, was blasted off her hooves by a spray of high-powered machine gun blasts, and came to rest near me. Ooh, that's one big can. Those turrets now all pointed right at me, and the mechanical beast let out a low, long rev of its engines. Its tread started to grind through the firehouse rubble as it moved towards us. Of course it was after me. Everything was after me! I was wondering where the zebra infantry was. Then I looked at P-21 staring with his jaw dropped. I looked at his bare back and glanced at the rubble. Well, it'd be a shame to waste it. I reached out with my magic. I flicked up the guard and pushed the red button. You know, this was turning into a regular thing with me today. The bomb buried in the remains of the firehouse ripped up directly underneath the rear corner of the tank. Its left tread flew apart as the entire back end of the vehicle crumbled. For a moment, I was sure that this would be going to a secondary explosion, but the tank just lay there like a busted toy. Bricks and dust and flaming bits cascaded down upon us as we huddled on the ground. I slowly rose to my hooves and took a few steps towards the war machine. Then I looked back over my shoulder at my friends and grinned. I win. Then the engine growled back to life, and a pink glow began to spread along the damaged vehicle, the metal bending back into shape, knitting together and reappearing. The guns began to move in their sockets, and altogether we rushed away to the west, disappearing into the smoke. A minute later, the tank's engine let out a roar that echoed across the battlefield.